So, gentlemen, I've been working very hard on some behind-the-scenes things. One of them is I'm trying to eradicate the word from my vocabulary.
Oh, I thought from like the universe.
And from the universe at large. It's really difficult, and I use a lot, so my apologies. Hey, Hanover Fists here, Jean's here, Hope's here. Do not weep for me, for where I am, the babas are always buoyed, and the squatches are always dripping with gravy, my divine siblings. All right. Thank you for that.
Did he really say that? I can't see chat.
Yeah,
You can't see chat?
No,
Why
Can't see
not?
chat. I don't know. It's not pulling up for me.
Is it just not showing, huh?
Nope.
Yeah, it just says messages from the audience will display here, but that
Which is
turned
a
out to be
lie.
false.
Well,
Clearly
that's
a lie.
a fine how do you don't. Hey, happy Mumamo to everybody. Shoot. I'm going to try not to and I'm going to also try not to react to when I do making it,
Anti-umming.
yeah.
I'm not going to try to or
Let's see. Gabriel says, I hope my doubt can be answered in here. My name is Republica in Discord. Rublica. And I hope your doubt can be answered in here too. I don't know what your doubt is, but we're here to undoubt the doubting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, good night from Spain.
It's actually
Says
on
our
my
friend.
business card.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Nice.
I'm here to undoubt the doubters.
Yes.
Do you
He's-
doubt?
he's-
I will undoubt you.
He's an undoubting Thomas.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's my favorite. Pope Brandon Brownson says, did he really say that? Does Troy often trick Alex with chat monologues? Because if so, that's my new favorite Mumamo fact. I don't. That's a fun trick, though. But I see it kind of puts me in the intersection of the people that I work with and the people that I work for. It's just sort of a bad space to sort of, or a great space to cause some trouble. Hey, it's Mumamo, and today's show is brought to you by the live preview of Astonishing Adventures Assembled. I love that name.
Me too.
A whole lot. I'm in love with it. I want to marry it. Hey, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
A good Mumamo unto you.
And also with you.
Thank you. I was super excited to see that you did not get taken away by a tornado.
Me too.
Yeah.
My time in Oz was brief but productive.
Nice. Good. Excellent. Mr. Kenson, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Excellent. I am excited about this. Everybody's been asking about the Astonishing Adventures Assembled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Many asks. Freedom City by Gaslight. I like that. Thanks, Claude. Hanover says, anyone involved with M&M should be skilled with distracting their opponents with a monologue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Skilled is a little probably generous. Gabriel, I'm presuming, says, thanks, if I may. Do perception attacks pass through walls to hit someone behind it who you can accurately perceive with a special sense, or must you take the indirect extra?
I think that the accurate would allow it to pass through as long as you could perceive with that sense, because the wall is not blocking that accurate sense.
Mm-hmm. That is generally true. I think it does depend sometimes on the descriptors of the power. So like a mental blast, where you can see someone through a transparent barrier, I wouldn't say that that's going to inhibit the power's effect. But some powers, if you have a perception range ability that clearly originates from you and is physical in nature, it's possible a physical transparent barrier might block it. And that's going to be a game master call to a certain degree, whether or not that's the case or indirect is needed. But generally, I'd say no.
Yeah, if you have something like a radar, maybe, like if you send somebody through a radar and you attack them with a satellite or something, like from the direction on the other side of the wall, that could call for indirect. But
Indeed,
I think it's a case by case basis.
Okay, thank you, friends, for letting me know that we're not, for whatever reason, coming through on Facebook.
If it does help, you are paying a lot more points to get perception ranged and an accurate sense than you would pay for indirect otherwise.
Yeah. So allowing a certain amount of flexibility in there is pretty fair.
Because indirect is 1 per rank, right?
Yeah. Indirect is relatively cheap.
And
1 per point of indirect, not per level of the power.
Yeah.
And so Gabriel, or how about our friend Franco? Tell me in chat if that answers your question, so that we can be sure that you are not left hanging with any other questions.
We want to clear up all of your doubts.
That's right. That's right.
That's why we're here. That's why we have a weekly broadcast to the people.
That's right. Literally, quite literally. So Gene says, will there be how to use alternate villains for adventures?
Yes. In Astonishing Adventures Assembled, we have a whole section about that.
Indeed.
RC says, I love it when the subreddit community crosses over here. So do I. So do I.
Too.
All right. Let's see if this does it.
Yeah, in Gene Karan, if it helps, we actually also include alternate villains for each of the adventures in Astonishing Adventures if you want to use somebody from Earth Prime.
Yes.
That's different from the villain in the box.
So while I'm doing that, before I jump into the PDF and while I'm farting around with our Facebook connection, can we talk a little bit about the process from which something like Astonishing Adventures Assembled is assembled? Just sort of what that looks like, and also just sort of, I'm always curious as to how challenging, or what are the things that you need to do when you're working with external writers and things, and I don't even know if we've ever broken down how many different kinds of people make a contribution to this one product, but it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think we're both talking about working with outside freelancers on the individual Astonishing Adventures, as well as how a collection like this comes into being. And we have particular proclivities at Green Ronin when it comes to collections of stuff.
Yeah, we can't just keep it as simple as just putting the things together and putting them back out in the world, right?
No. Mostly it involves adding things.
Yeah, but I guess that it began, the adventures began as monthly PDFs that were commissioned as a group a little over 2 years ago. With Crystal meeting with a number of people to pitch ideas for Astonishing Adventures, at the end of which she assigned those writers to go forth and write those adventures. The writers wrote the adventures. They came back to Crystal, who did a development pass on each of them, and then Crystal sent them off to an editor. They came back, and then the adventures were released as products, one at a time. After that point, we got together, all of us, and figured out which of the Astonishing Adventures we wanted to include in here, and divvied up the new work that needed to be done between Crystal, Steve, and myself. With Steve working on the chapter about player character stuff, like how to, and we'll go over this when we get into the PDF, but establishing character arcs and figuring out how to connect your player characters to each of the different adventures. And then I worked on the GM stuff, which was how GMs can modify the adventures. So taking things apart, pulling scenes out, changing the villains, making them longer, making them shorter, all that fun stuff. And Crystal worked on our contact section, as well as layout and drawing up some new maps and doing a bunch of fun stuff on that end. And the three of us also worked on ways that you can do all these adventures into 3 different campaigns if you want to use the same adventures for 3 different meta plots.
Yep, 3 very different campaigns.
And I need to fix mine because Steve and Crystal both did a bonus adventure. So if you want to get even more campaign out of your series.
Well, Alex, you should just do a set of guidelines on how to make any of the adventures 10 times longer than they normally are.
That feels like its own book. Welcome to the long reign of cats and dogs.
The Reign of Cats and Dogs campaign.
Mm-hmm. Or into the syndicated idiot box.
Right. God, how many seasons of this are there?
Well done when I say we're done.
All right, I'm giving it a shot, folks. I'm afraid Facebook might not be cooperating, which is a bummer. But
that's Facebook not cooperating. That's almost hard to believe.
I know, right?
That's strange. I wonder why.
But look at this.
Ta-da.
Here it is. Here we go.
And just so everyone knows, this is the PDF in layout. We haven't gone through the editing process yet, so there might be some bumps as we're going along the way. For instance, the table of contents is the table of contents for the Time Traveler's Codex for space saving purposes at the moment. For space holding purposes, not saving purposes.
It's the hint.
We had to promise our production manager that we would add that caveat so that everyone is aware that this is not the finished product just yet.
Right.
You might get to see some really fun typos.
And my feeling is, I think our friends are up for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think our pals.
It's a peek behind the curtain.
It is. There we go. I moved that bar so that it wasn't on your face. But, okay, so here we go. The call to adventure. Okay.
Just because this is Steve's section of the additional writing.
Yeah. So this stuff is, I was going to say, call to adventure is, where is it? The establishing your arc stuff. Okay.
Yep.
Did I jump too far ahead? I'm trying to get to my scrolling is a little on the wacky side. What page are we on?
Basically, we're starting off on page 5.
Nope, it still doesn't want to work. 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Establishing your arc.
Exactly. And
perfect.
Pretty much this whole section is just a long list of writing prompts for players and therefore game masters to think about in terms of their characters. A lot of times when I'm setting up a campaign, I know Alex does similarly, I will oftentimes give players basically a survey that is just a list of writing prompts. That's things like, what is your character's, what's your character's favorite meal? What's your character's favorite thing to do with their free time? Those kinds of things, so that both it gets players thinking about those things, and it gives me as the game master some hooks, so that when I want to say the character is out at their favorite restaurant or they're doing their favorite off-time activity, I know what it is. I can just look at the character surveys that people have given me and go, oh, okay. So most likely when I start this adventure and it happens to start in the city park, I know what all the characters would be doing in the park, at that time of the day. Or if one of the characters is like one of those characters who never goes to the park, I have to come up with a reason for them to be there.
Excellent.
There's a lot of that sort of stuff, and particularly it tends towards the end to get into the heavier questions of things like are there lines your character would never cross? Are there complications for your character that you want to see in play more or less? And for some of them, as a game master, if the answer is less, oftentimes I'm like, well, do you really want that to be a complication? Because it sounds to me like you don't actually want it to come up.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
in which case it is not serving its intended purpose. So maybe we should find a complication that can come up in the game.
Well, I
As far
like
as
this
that
a lot,
goes.
Steve. Yeah. Do you maintain a secret identity? If so, does anyone else know? I mean, that's a really great
Right.
section and exercise to sort of expand your knowledge of how to play your character. That's really great.
And it's, while I know a lot of players will come up with these things on the fly, and oftentimes, I mean, this isn't going to answer everything, um, and that's perfectly viable way to do it. It can be a helpful exercise for the players and the GM to just put some thought into it in advance.
What does you do for a living?
What does you do for a living? That's
I
one of my
don't know
favorite
what I
typos
do.
of all
What
time.
do
Me
anyone
too.
does for a living?
Right? What do anyone do?
That's great. And I think what it also does, Steve, is it sets the people, like you were saying, people make approach this at the table as sort of as it pops up and they're inspired. But
Hmm.
this allows you to really start to think of just character creation in general with a deeper look and a
Right.
methodology. So you can sort of say, okay, what would my character do in these positions? Or, what would their natural reaction be based on who their arch nemesis is? Is really kind of an interesting idea.
And it provides this is all the character detail that isn't covered in the mechanics of character creation.
Yeah.
You know, you when you plug in all the numbers to make your character work, it doesn't for the most part touch on much of this stuff. This is really the sort of like, what does your character think and feel? What do they do? What do they care about?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What's their favorite food? What I like,
Right.
just what tempts you. All that stuff is a lot of fun, and it really does lend the texture and a little granularity to things that might be part of the good storytelling
Sure.
of it all.
Absolutely.
Hey, before I forget this, and I will lose it if I don't. Let me see. Where did it go? Our friend Franco said, just one question to make sure. The ranged effect in indirect extra applies only for ranged effects and not to perception effects, right?
That's generally true. It depends on the nature of the perception effect. If a perception effect originates from the character and projects in a line or the like to the target, then indirect could apply to it. If you wanted it to originate from somewhere else, as far as that goes, the perception range modifier doesn't really say anything one way or the other about the effect traversing the distance between the character and the target. So that's kind of left up to the descriptors and the nature of the power as far as that goes. It might not. It might project through a different medium or a completely different way as far as that goes. So indirect could potentially apply to it, but like Alex says, there's a great deal of indirect sort of inherent in the nature of perception range effects. So there's not a lot of instances where it's going to come up.
Mhm.
Claude says a food-themed luck hero as a sidekick for Gravy Squatch, Murphy Slaw.
Oh,
Minus one hero
good.
point for Claude.
Oh, Claude, I'm so sorry to hear it.
I'm taking
so
it.
sorry. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the tables have turned, my friend. Craft. Oh, geez. You're welcome, my friend. Thank you. Our friend says, thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Gabriel.
Yeah, anytime.
Craft01, which sounds to me like sort of a new cheese food.
Mm-hmm. Cheese
Zero
based life
one.
form.
Yeah. Now with less cheese. Asks any word on getting M&M on Foundry. We're working on it. We're working on it, and I hated this to be our kind of regular refrain, but the team we like to call it's a small team but mighty.
Yep.
They're working on a lot of different things, and Foundry is on that list. We've signed contract paperwork. We are right now working to. I think that the Expanse is ahead of us in line, but it takes a lot of coding and a lot of back.
It does.
And so given the complications, it is easier for us to focus on one and then roll over to the next. And so we're sorting all those details out as we move forward. But I guarantee you, my friends, we will. Don't stop asking and don't stop believing. But we will scream to high heaven that it will sound the trumpets and light the braziers and
braziers, not the braziers.
Braziers. I'm sorry, braziers.
Right.
That's a different kind of party.
That is a different kind of party. Yeah. Sorry, Steve, I was stepping on you a little bit. I don't know if you want to.
No, right. I mean, I was just going to say that the thing with VTT is there are several different platforms. They're all different in their technical requirements.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of games.
Yeah, we do.
A
whole lot of games.
So it's just a lot of work that a very small group of people are dedicated and hacking away at, but it's slow.
All right, so let's see. Thank you for that. Thank you for asking. Also, Craft01, check in again and let us know when you're feeling a little antsy, and we'll give you an update. Let's see. Shoot, I'm counting like 14 ums already. Prof Purge says a good example of perception ranged effect that could be justified as indirect would be an attack that originated from a remote controlled drone, which might be armed with various based missiles.
Yeah, sure.
And RC says I'm getting close to making that a chat macro. RC does his level best to kind of share information with folks when they ask in chat, and I appreciate that for sure. So things here, those two parties don't have to be mutually exclusive. Let's see. SC Terran Marine 14 says, how does the wish list actually work for story arcs?
In terms of powers or...
your Amazon wish list?
No, I think it's this character improvement wish list. And assuming no change in power level, how would you spend your next 30 power points?
So the improvement wish list for me as a game master serves a number of purposes. First, it gives me a sense of where the player wants to go with that character in terms of their improvement, progression, things like that. Then it gives me the opportunity to look at what I expect their PowerPoints to be over the course of the adventures, and to get a sense of how I can work those developments into the adventures as potentially story elements or developments. If a player wants their character to get a vehicle, as part of their PowerPoint expenditures, or to improve a vehicle that their character has, I can look at the upcoming adventures and say, hey, is there a mechanic? Is there a patron? Is there somebody involved in technology who might, be someone who's going to help the character out in that regard and provide some story weight to that PowerPoint spending? So it's not just the player spends their points and things happen, but those improvements also seem more naturally woven into the story. So far as that goes, if a character is looking for a teacher or a mentor or to learn a skill or, anything like that, I can, get a sense of how that might sort of overlap with the overall course of the adventures.
Yeah, I really like that, Steve. I think I've been doing this on the player side on my end for a long time. I haven't thought to do it on the GM side to engage other players in that, because usually if I'm playing in a campaign setting, I will take it on myself to only make improvements on things that I actually did in the adventure that we just did. I know it's just a hindrance I put on myself to make my character better, but I like it because it ties it into what's been going on in the story, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But being able to use that as a GM tool, I think that's a really interesting notion. I'm going to have to write that down.
Well, and especially because it's useful in terms of knowing what things are interesting to the players. If, that way I'm not handing them rewards they're not interested in, as far as that goes too. Sometimes it's okay to surprise them with something, but I don't want to be handing out things that the players are just like, oh, this is all right, but what I really wanted was this.
Well, Simon's got some great stuff. There we go. Yeah, I'll just do that.
Yep.
A patron could also be somebody who empowers a hero in exchange for. Yeah, that's great. Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Absolutely.
So a couple questions I don't want to miss. Thank you, RC. Is the Claude? I think it was Claude asks, how many pages do we expect this to be?
More than 120, less than 200.
Yeah, that's a good range.
Yeah.
The current PDF layout is 153 pages, but there'll be some tinkering around. There'll be some fill texting.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to do some stuff with the editing. So
yeah, I'd say
it'll be a decent size book.
is pretty good.
Yeah,
there's a question on the floor as to whether or not there's a Wendy's or a Wendy's equivalent in our. I don't we have I think we did a Danger Zone that's a fast or a burger joint, right? Yeah. You can call it whatever you want, friends.
What was the name of that place?
Gosh,
they had the big orange on top. The whole building was an orange. I don't remember.
Oh, Juicy's Juice, Juicy Bear's Juice. Juice spelled Jooce.
Oh,
I
think it
That
was
was the one
Juice
that-
Bear something.
I think
It might have been.
Crystal had added it to the map.
It was when we were drawing maps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I think
Simon-
legally speaking, there are no Wendy's in the Freedomverse, at least in
Right.
the official publications. But the multiverse is a strange and wondrous place.
Indeed. And if there happens to be Wendy's in your, Earth Prime, then so be it.
There you go. And
For legal purposes, I think square burgers are strange.
I agree. I do agree. Looking at Danger Zones now, they reference super meal burgers and fries.
Mm.
Yeah, I think Alex is remembering when we were drawing that it was like a train station. We were basically all looking over Crystal's shoulder as she was creating a map. One of my favorite episodes. I do believe we gave that to the Patreon.
We did. I just don't remember what the name of the juice joint was.
Yeah.
It's Juicy Bear. Juicy Bear's Juice, I think. Earth Prime has triangular patties. I would, yes, that might be true. That might be true.
Not while I'm in charge. It does not.
Mine are hexagonal.
That's right. That's great. Someone said, yeah, I only accept octagon-shaped burgers. I'm very hard to please. That's great. There's good old Starbase. Yeah, coffee.
Yeah, Starbase coffee.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so...
combining Steve's obsession with science fiction and coffee.
Ooh, nice mix, yeah.
In a restaurant that I wish existed.
Pyramid patties.
That'd be so good.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay, pyramid patties is pretty good. Okay.
Right.
I might let you get away with triangular patties if it's pyramid
patties, right?
It's the Juice Bear, yeah.
It was part
Juicy.
Part of the extensive company holdings of the Scarab.
Juicy the Juice Bear. Refreshing. One of the things I will say about Mumamo is that we have developed just unbreakable, unshakable brands. Mountain Treacle was one of my favorites. It's a good one.
Only flavor blasted kind.
Flavor blasted. I love it. And Juicy the Juice Bear. That's a good mascot. The little cosplay idea for your friends.
If you come up to the booth at Gen Con as an orange juice bear, I will give you a hug personally.
You know what? I will give you a collection of books.
Wow.
Yeah. Pope says I'm going to write 78 source books for M&M's specifically built around a triangular patty-based multiverse. Hope you're ready for the Tri-Burgerverse, nerds.
Here for it. For it.
Okay, so now
hey, Troy, let's talk about comrades and contacts.
Let's do that. Thank you so much.
So these comrades and contacts, these are sample contacts if you want to get more specific with your contact advantage, or if you have the connected advantage, just like people that your characters know around the world or around Freedom City, depending on how big your campaign is. And certain skills that they have and certain kinds of favors you can call in from those characters. Because one of the things that I love the most about the contacts and the connected advantage is when people make those checks, I usually ask them, who is this person you know?
Mm-hmm.
And give them a little bit of get them a little bit of narrative description, a little bit of role play, so they can come up with somebody on the fly. But these are people, if you don't want to do that, or if there's a specific kind of contact who could fit in to your campaign to provide a certain service. And we divvy them up amongst academic contacts, authority contacts, criminal contacts, media contacts, science contacts, target contacts. Target contacts I'm most excited about because these are the ones who get kidnapped the most.
Mm.
So these are your Jimmy Olsens, your Daedaluses, your your Mary Janes, those sorts of contacts.
Mm-hmm.
But one fun thing we did with these contacts is we've collected a couple that are people from the Patreon. Troy, if you want to go to page 14,
I do want to go to there.
We can find one of those in the criminal contacts section.
Dun dun dun.
And that is Claude Gray, the master of the stage.
Wow. There it is. A starving actor rather than a criminal. Claude Gray, nonetheless, lives in the same neighborhoods and frequents the same establishments as the city's criminals and hired goons. None of that being surprising to me. I love that. Yeah, and apologies for folks who aren't finding us on Facebook. I couldn't tell you why, but I wish I could.
So although we've put Claude in the criminal section, he is not in fact a criminal.
Well, to our knowledge.
Right. Not that can be proved in a court of law.
I like it. Claude excels at pretending to be who he is not. Whether that means, I would say that there is a distinct lack of humor in this particular description of this character, but Claude is rather funny. But okay, when the next one.
The other one I know for a fact is one of our Patreon supporters is on page 16 in the science contacts section.
Okay. Oops. Did I miss it? Okay, I'm on. Okay, here's 16.
It's Craig McNichol.
Oh, there we go. McNichol. Adventuring archaeologist. Fun. Hey, thanks, Corey. Corey says, you guys make the best game resources.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do our best.
I agree.
But Craig McNichol, adventuring archaeologist. Archaeologists answer questions about our past, but Craig McNichol takes his job a step further by answering questions about another species past, the serpent people. Drawing on historical documents, lost artifacts, and Atlantean records, he is also the world's foremost non-Atlantean expert on Atlantis. With a personal expedition to Subterra, he is the leading expert on the ancient serpent people empire of Lemuria and the lost continent of Subterra. Sadly, much of the academic community isn't ready to believe serpent people exist, making recognition of his expertise in uphill battle appreciated by a few, except superheroes and the occasional cult. Craig McNichol is actually going to show up in our at-home game, our office game that we play, because our team is getting ready to take an expedition down into Subterra.
Yes.
I recalled bits or pieces of this. It sounded very familiar. Looking forward to that.
And archaeologists are such great supporting characters because they're always getting into trouble. Because they can't leave things well enough alone.
No, they got to unleash the ancient terror or et cetera, et cetera. Prof. Purge asks, are there any tips included for running the existing adventures in different tones or styles or using different locales or even time periods?
There are some tips for running the existing adventures with different villains and different sort of vibes, but nothing necessarily for different locations or time periods.
Yeah. Some suggestions on adjusting their power level a bit as far as that goes. But yeah, time periods would be a pretty hefty advice section for those adventures.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I'm going to write it down in my notepad as something that might be something supplemental that we could work on.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, bring your bingo cards up. And I believe we've got Gravy Squatch, and now Alex grabs a pencil. And
It's a pen.
A pen.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, grabs a pen, a writing implement. Oh, Pope says, Alex, you're a cool idea.
Pope Brandon, you are a cool idea. Thank you for hanging out with us. You Baba my buoy.
That's so sweet. Okay, why don't we move on to the next spot? What are you feeling? Give me
Yeah.
a page, any page.
Well, let's head right on to customizing campaigns.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll
What
jump
page number?
into. We're gonna head on down. Come right this way. We're gonna head on down to. Let's go to page 19 for now. We're going to take a little detour on the way to modifying campaigns, but this is chapter 2 of this book is called Customizing Campaigns, so this covers a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But page 19 is a section that's very near and dear to my heart. It's about session 0.
Yes.
Which is something I have always been a massive proponent for, especially for superhero RPGs.
Yes, indeed.
Because when you say superhero, that means a million different things to a million different people.
Right.
Especially these days.
Yeah, because it is a very big genre, and there are a lot of places that it can go wrong if you leave your players to their imagination to come up with any superhero they want, independent of all the other people they're going to be playing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed.
You don't want to wind up with like 5 Power Rangers and the Punisher is what I always tell people.
Right.
But we've included with this session 0 section here, starting on page 19, there is a bunch of notes about how to begin your session 0, what to prepare for it on your end, how to come up with the elevator pitch for your campaign, what to do during the actual session, safety tools that are helpful as a GM when you're running a superhero game or any sort of role-playing game. This is a very universal session 0 section that I included. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just lots of ways to make sure that you and your players are all on the same page before you get started.
Yeah, very important.
I like it a lot. Session 0s, for me, also are just a lot of fun.
They can be, really, because they get everybody really excited about the whole premise. I mean, because part of the whole idea of session 0 is to get the players to buy in to the whole premise of the game. Mm-hmm. And, to get them excited about the idea of the game.
Yeah, and it solidifies to them that this is a group storytelling experience. It's not just the GM presenting, this is the story I want to tell. And the players just have to show up. It is giving them space to buy in, space to contribute to the idea of the game.
One of the other important things I think about session 0 is it's probably just safe in general for everyone to presume that nobody knows anything about anything. It's a good place to start so that folks who are brand new are able to begin wrapping their mind around all of the things. That session 0 really helps reduce some anxiety and also just wrap your mind around kind of what am I doing in this space and which dice do I have to roll and all of that good stuff. But I think it's also just a lot of fun to start to get to know your folks. I do. You're not connected on Discord, says Simon. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure exactly why that's happening, friends, but I do apologize. If you are here from Discord, you ought to stop by the YouTube page and give it a like, give it a follow, give it some love. But let's see. Meanwhile, I went crazy. There is a... Oh, I do want to say to our friend Old Campaign, says, speaking of time periods, I wanted to thank you all for inspiring me to create my own company and make our own TTRPGs. I'm hoping when things get all done, you all could be inspired like I was by y'all.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's super awesome. I believe Old Campaign, I saw you wrote us a little note on Twitter, and I will definitely get back to you with an answer. Given our schedules, things can be a little tight sometimes, but we like talking with friends for sure. So I would anticipate that coming soon. Let's see.
I think this product is actually the first time that session 0 gets mentioned in Mutants and Masterminds, because although it was something I was doing for years, it really hasn't come into common parlance as a term until relatively recently.
Yeah, I think it's only been the last few years that it's
Yeah,
sort of entered the gaming
that
zeitgeist, but I love it.
everyone is kind of calling it that. Yeah.
Hanover says we should call it Scene Zero.
Issue
You could.
0.
Yeah, issue 0. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Editor's desk, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I like that too. Yeah. Yeah, Gene says each player gives some ideas. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually include a section in my session zeros that are things the players want to see, and that can be villains, that can be adventure types, that can be scenes, that can be any sort of anything that they think that they want to include in the game that isn't just stuff that I'm throwing at them.
Right.
RC asked a quick question that is a little bit off topic, but I think an important one. The digital files went out for the reprint backers, and RC noticed that the DHH was marked 1.3. Is that the latest, and have the errata? Is that so? Do those? Did they go out with updated errata?
I don't know.
You know what, RC? That's a question I'm going to take back to the team, because we don't necessarily know the answer to that. But we'll find out and bring it back to you.
It's my hope that they are, but it's not something that I have any say in.
Right. Yeah. I know that I remember us talking about it. I just don't, we'll figure that out. That's a great question. And yeah, Squire says the super team said that, or the super team handbook talks about session 0, but doesn't use that term.
Yeah,
the super team handbook is super handy.
It really is. It really is.
But it makes sense that it shows up there, because the super team handbook is about how to make your characters all feel like they're part of a team, even if they have wildly different origin stories.
Right.
Indeed.
All right,
which is one of the primary goals of a session 0.
So we've made it to page 21, and we've got about roughly 15 minutes left.
Yeah, so I'll just sort of go through here pretty quickly.
Okay, great.
This is the customizing an adventure section. So this is the biggest chunk of useful knowledge for the game master, in that you can take this section of this book and apply it to any of our Astonishing Adventures. The goal of an Astonishing Adventure is to provide you with a toolkit that you can use to tell stories. So whether that is using the story as it is presented in that book, pulling scenes wholesale out of it to jump into your campaign and different adventures, or just taking the overarching plot and changing everything about it. We have all sorts of different ways to move forward in this section. Starting with power level adjustment. So if your adventure is being run for characters that are higher power level or lower power level than what's recommended, we have a handy dandy chart here to sort of help balance the conflicts in the adventure by power level. It's sort of a shorthand I've been using for a long time to balance my own encounters, with the knowledge that nothing's ever going to be super incredibly balanced in M&M, because there are so many different power configurations, and certain scenarios are benefited by powers. You never know how many hero points the characters are going to have. But generally, this is the scale I like to work towards. That being, if the power level of the villains is equal to the player characters, there is one villain per hero. If it's PC power level -1, it's 1 per hero +1. PC power level -2 or -3, it's 2 per hero. And then PC power level 4 or lower is 4 per hero. And the same thing on the other side. And again, it's a rough guide. There's no way to cover every build of heroes and villains, hero points, environmental factors, or context-specific powers. But that is the best way to sort of wrap your head around if you're doing a combat on the fly.
Yeah.
In my mind. We have ways to adjust the dice difficulty checks of the other challenges that aren't conflicts. So things like skill tests, challenge sequences, hazards, how to do larger or smaller groups, which is something that I think we've been good about in the past, because a lot of our encounters are this many villains per hero present.
Yeah.
And then adjusting timing, which is sort of the joke reason that I was brought in to write this section. Because I did Nether War, instead of doing it in 6 sessions, I did it in 53 sessions, because I'm a maniac. But adjusting timing is if you want to stretch out an adventure, because Astonishing Adventures are designed to be run in 1 to 3 game sessions generally. So if you want to lengthen it beyond that, or if you want to shorten it, which I was the wrong person to ask how to shorten things, because that's just not my thing.
No, not your style.
But how to break out different scenes, how to include different villains, how to divide scenes up if you're working with some of our stuff. We have a great example of that in the second adventure of Nether War. Is that Bound by Blood with the Bloodstones?
Mm-hmm.
Steve, you wrote that.
No. I did Pentacle Plot. Or Pentacle Peril, I guess. Pentagram Peril.
Pentagram Peril. That's the one I'm thinking
Peril,
of.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Pentagram Peril is the one with the Bloodstones.
Okay, then it is me.
Where there's 5 stones spread out along
Yes.
the world, and there were 5 scenes. But there's a sidebar in there that says you could stretch this out into like 20 adventures if you want to.
Each of those 5 scenes could be an adventure if you wanted.
Yeah. So,
Hey, Bound by
like that.
Gold, Pook says, Prof Perch said it would be interesting to do an adventure without any individual villains. Instead, having the heroes tackle natural and paranormal disasters.
Yep,
sure.
Absolutely could. That would be an interesting entry for Astonishing Adventures, actually.
Hey, you know what? This is true. It is over. If you head over to Drive Through RPG, we are participating in the GM's Day Sale, 30% off of most everything, including nearly all of Green, Ronin, and M&M stuff. So get over there, GMs.
Yeah.
Or GMs to be, whoever you are. If you think you're going to be a GM or you just like a GM, maybe you buy a gift for a GM.
Honestly, I appreciate all of you GMs in the world. I know how much hard work you do every time you bring your table together to make a game happen.
Absolutely.
And
It's true.
you deserve all the praise in the world.
Agreed. We're fans of the GMs. Bowman versus collapsing infrastructure. Yeah. That's great.
Poor Bowman. I mean, he's the one Freedom League member that collapsing infrastructure is a problem for.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. He's just a guy.
Centurion's like,
with
it
a
falls
bow.
on me. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever.
Hanover says any player should have the Power Profiles book.
Very useful resource.
Absolutely.
Any developer should have the Power Profiles book.
Yeah. Pope says Arctic Fox versus an increasing cost of living and groceries. Yeah.
It's tough.
I have a feeling like those are the adventures we want to escape.
Right.
Troy, if you'll go to page 24,
I'm
that's
there
where
right
we
now.
talk about having it your way. So taking an adventure and incorporating your PC's complications, swapping villains out, making it more specific for your group in a way that we as the developer can't do because we don't know who your group is.
Right.
Alex, for those not in the know, have it your way. Burger King.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. There you go.
So that's how I feel about Wendy's. Anyway.
That's so great.
We also talk about how if you're thinking about people in the story that might know connected PCs have the connected advantage and how that can change their interactions. So be thinking of that. Think of places to put circumstance bonuses. Look out for scenes that give certain powers a spotlight so you can incorporate it to your players more specifically, or that's something you could set up for your hero to do a really cool thing. Also, how to swap out villains. And on page 25, like we were talking about, these are villains from the Freedomverse that you can slot in for the main villains of each of the adventures in this book.
Hey,
So
that's
instead
awesome.
Right.
instead of Cerebrus Rex for Rise of the Tyrant, we broke it down into like what archetype of villain is that, and what villains do we have like that, and how we can do that. So like,
Right.
Rex is an interdimensional warlord who's hellbent on world conquest. So we looked at Overshadow because Overshadow is the megalomaniacal overlord type from Earth Prime. But we also looked at Una, Queen of the Netherworld from Netherwar and Hades as conquerors from other dimensions, but how that would change. They would have magically themed minions and use a mystic portal instead of a science-based one. We talked about Prince Rokar, supported by aliens, rather than dinosaurs and robots and things like that. So just little things that keep the heart of the story, but you can change the villain to a villain that they're more interested in.
How cool. I love that. That is such a great, and also just, it's sort of, again, a prompt that you can do this with a lot of different Mutants and Masterminds adventures, kind of do some mixing and matching.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And here's a section that will be familiar to both members of the Patreon and viewers of M&M Monday from when we originally talked about the whole concept of challenge points and released the original draft of this on the Patreon.
There you go. You know, what a great line through as well. You know, wasn't the challenge points were kind of, they were created as sort of an opportunity for just the Patreon to get some fun stuff, and we showed it off here, and then there you go. I mean, it's kind of watching how a baby is made.
Indeed.
It's true, except that we're not going to get demonetized for it.
Exactly.
Claude says, oh, neat. Been wanting to try those. Yeah.
No,
and then the last real thing I want to hit for this preview before we jump into winding the show down, because we only have 9 minutes left, is on page 28.
28 it is. Here we go.
These are the campaign structures. So these are how Crystal, Steve, and I ordered the 6 adventures in this book to create 3 different campaigns. So I think we should go through one of them.
Sure.
Steve, do you want to do yours, or do you want to talk about Cerebrus Rex?
You should do yours.
All right, we'll talk about Cerebrus Rex. That is down on page 32. Troy?
Thank you for telling me. I would have taken me a hot minute to to scroll there. Here we go.
Look, and I talk crap about Wendy's, but I had a Frosty today with my wife. So
they are. See?
I like Wendy's, but I live in Columbus. I think they're from around here somewhere close by. I don't know.
Oh.
We don't. Yeah, I mean, we don't really.
I know we're a test market for Wendy's.
Thus, there's a lot of experimentation going on.
Nice.
But so I've taken those 6 adventures, and I've broken it down into a campaign that I've called the Tyrant Lizard King, which is all about how Cerebrus Rex is a lizard king on a mission, looking to open a portal between his native realm and the one in which he finds himself stranded, Earth Prime. His ultimate goal is to add Earth Prime to his considerable and extra-dimensional empire. And we turn all the adventures in this book into Cerebrus Rex's globe-trotting grand design for world domination.
Awesome.
So I started by taking the 3 of the adventures and looking for people who I thought could be contacts of Cerebrus Rex, or people who are willing to cooperate with Cerebrus Rex for various reasons. The Green Man, in particular, is receiving samples of saurian flora from Cerebrus in exchange for a promise to return to a natural Earth once he restores the simians to their rightful place beneath the dinosaurs. So the football players in Green Thumb are meant to be shock troops for Cerebrus Rex's invasion. So it's a sample. It's basically a corruption of the simians that the Green Man is privy to working with. Cold Day in Midtown was kind of tough because Cerebrus Rex probably doesn't want an Ice Age being a cold-blooded dinosaur. But I took the Gelid engine, the machine that Madame Zero is using to create the disaster, and that is not what its intention is for. It's a power supply for the dimensional transporter that stranded Rex on Earth Prime. And Madame Zero just happened to find the setting that opens up into the elemental plane of ice. So it's making snow, but that's not what it's supposed to do.
Cool.
And Cerebrus Rex warms up to one of the members of the Cold Front Glacier and offers to let him keep the Gelid engine and basically allow the ice people to travel to an elemental plane of ice in exchange for helping Cerebrus Rex get this device back so he can get home. He tells Glacier he wants to go home, not that he wants to take over the world.
Right. Playing on Glacier's sympathies as a fellow exile.
Yeah. Because Glacier's a good dude at the end of the day.
Simon says, Simon says the current section of the Astonishing Adventures Assembled is giving me the idea of a road trip adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That could be a lot of fun. Yeah. Apuk said, I would love to see Cerebrus Rex collide with Dr. Simeon.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Right?
Or she says, whoever wins, we lose.
Let them fight.
I like it.
Cloud McGuire is also a servant of Cerebrus Rex, unbeknownst to Cloud, because she wants to live in a world of superpowered animals, and Rex wants to live in a world with superpowered dinosaurs. So they kind of get along on that end, and instead of finding wacky Silver Age gadgets, Rex gives her a group of Saurian gadgets to power her hijinks.
Nice.
And then to the moon is Rex needs the terraformless in order to terraform the Earth to make it ideal for the Saurians. But Conundrum has his own goals there. He goes to find a preserver AI called Hansha, who is theorized to have been an interrogation device for the long-gone civilization, because Conundrum wants to punish all of the heroes on Earth, and he wants to use this particular preserver AI to accomplish that.
Which leads into
the idiot box, because Daedalus found this AI on Starhaven, and when he realized what it was, he decided to make it less lethal, and he reprogrammed it and fed it decades worth of human television programs to sort of drive it even crazier than it was, but in a sort of calm couch potato sort of way.
We've trained this AI on hundreds of hours of sitcoms.
Exactly. It just seems so rude.
I mean, look, Daedalus is a genius, but sometimes he makes bad choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, clearly.
So when Conundrum traps the heroes in the idiot box through this AI, the adventure runs mostly as written, but there's no villain alongside them. One of the PCs plays the role of the antagonist in each of the TV shows as a way to shake that adventure up a little bit.
What could go wrong, GM Jonesy says. Simon says, also speaking of exiles, I can imagine a villain from Anti-Earth making said deal with C-Rex as the most... Oh, is it Anti-Earth? Or is it Anti-Earth?
Well, it could be either one. There are two different ones. Anti-Earth is full of animal people.
Oh, Anna-Earth.
Some interest in Cerebrus Rex's schemes. And of course, Anti-Earth is full of people who are all evil. So
right.
I'm pretty sure Simon means the animal one.
Yeah.
Pretty certain of that. Anti-Earth. Anna-Earth.
Yep.
However that would. Yeah. Fun. Yeah. Dinos riding super apes.
Yeah, and the campaign ends with Rise of the Tyrant, which is the culmination of all Cerebrus Rex's hard work, which runs a lot of the same way, but a lot of the villains and the minions of Cerebrus Rex are jumped up and replaced with things from the different adventures. So like the Terraformers shows back up, Goanna or Megalodon show up. There are gangsters augmented with the Black Heart Orchid compound. Just lots of different things. And Steve and I were talking earlier. Steve and I were talking earlier about ending the campaign with Rise of the Tyrant, but having that be the second time the heroes play Rise of the Tyrant, because I wanted to put a bonus adventure in there somehow, and I kind of like the idea of doing the same adventure twice with subtle differences. So I'm gonna noodle around on that a little bit.
All right, cool.
The one thing I think is interesting about all three of our campaign series is, for some reason, Reign of Cats and Dogs is the linchpin in the middle of all of them.
Yeah.
It's the middle adventure for all three, in spite of the fact that we put them all the other adventures in different order.
And we were completely separate from each other when we were coming up with this.
And we did these all independendly. So
that's what I love about this whole thing. That's great.
Apparently, Reign of Cats and Dogs is a great just middle adventure.
Yeah.
It's the glue. It's the peanut butter and jelly of your adventure sandwich. But you know what? We've got 1 minute left.
Time has flown.
Time flies when you're having fun. And let's see. Let me check the chat real quick. I want to say thanks to everybody for hanging out in the chat. We really have such a good time every Monday, hanging out, talking superhero stuff. And, Alex and Steve, there's about a million ways that you can spend your Monday, but hanging out here and doing this and having some fun with folks is really a joy for me, and I know for a lot of people in chat, for nearly 99% of them. And then we have... sorry, I just got scared. And then, so what do we have cooking? What do you have cooking this week, Alex?
Well, on Wednesday, I will be coming back once again for our Freedom We Dark in the Multiverse of the Master Mage actual play that is going on. Our heroes are going to be continuing their journey through Anti-Earth, where they are currently
Fun.
teamed up with all of their nemesis, but the hero version of their nemesis.
The good
And,
versions.
yeah, it's very awkward for everybody but me.
It
great.
sounds like yeah. I love it. I love it. Steve, what do you have cooking?
So speaking of streaming, my friend, author Nathan Burgoyne is over at bagofgiving.com.
Okay.
The charity fundraising site is going to be running a charity game of Mutants and Masterminds on Twitch tonight at 7 p.m., so in about an hour, that folks can tune into. And have the opportunity to contribute to a charitable cause.
Well, you just ought to do that. Bag of Giving is hosted on Arvin Elron's Twitch channel. Here we go. I am looking for the link, and we can give it.
As I understand it, all of the folks participating are a group of authors who are going to be playing Mutants and Masterminds for charity, so that should be fun.
Very fun. I'm going to drop this link in chat. Here you go. And folks, check that out. And I pulled that link, of course, from the bagofgiving.com website, so you can check that out. And let me drop that link. Well, listen, it's 3:02, and that means that we've given you 2 more minutes. Then, and so here's what I say. Keep that 2 minutes. Hang on to it, because you're going to need it when we're 2 minutes late next week. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I want to, again, thank everybody for hanging out. And also remind you, you want to hang out with us next Thursday for Thursday. A lot of big stuff coming. We have a lot of things we're going to talk about, including, maybe a little update to the Age Creators Alliance license.
Exciting.
All right, friends. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.